So today's lecture is about peritoneal cavity, and it is a continuation of previous lecture about the peritoneal reflection. And in this lecture we are going to cover how the peritoneal cavity is divided into different subdivisions, what is the rationale of their subdivision, and their clinical importance. So the peritoneal cavity, as discussed in the previous lecture, it is a capillary thin space between the parietal and the visceral peritoneum. And because of this differential growth of the viscera, especially the gut tube, the visceral layer, the visceral peritoneum, it is of different length. It varies depending on the growth of the organ. So now the peritoneal cavity is described as a continuous space between the parietal peritoneum lining the abdominal wall and the visceral peritoneum lining the abdominal viscera. So it is now subdivided into two main parts: a greater sac, which is encountered when laparotomy is done or the abdomen is cut open, and it is the main peritoneal cavity, and the lesser sac. Lesser sac is the space which is lying posterior to the stomach and the lesser omentum. So this is the lesser sac shown here, and other than that the area is greater sac. Now the greater sac, it is divided by the transverse colon and attachment transverse mesocolon into supracolic and infracolic compartment, and there is a lower portion which is the pelvic compartment inside the true pelvis. So the pelvic compartment has already been discussed in the previous lecture. Now this supracolic and infracolic compartments, they are connected by the paracolic gutters, and the lesser sac, also known as the omental bursa, this is the space lying posterior to the stomach and the lesser omentum, and it is connected with the greater sac through an opening in the omental bursa known as the epiploic foramen or the foramen of Winslow. The peritoneal attachment of the liver to the undersurface of the diaphragm and the anterior abdominal wall, especially the falciform ligament, it divides the supramesocolic compartment into right and left supramesocolic spaces. The right supramesocolic space is further subdivided into right subphrenic space, right subhepatic space, and lesser sac. The inclusion of lesser sac we will discuss in the development of the lesser sac. And the left supramesocolic space, it is subdivided into left subphrenic space and left perihepatic space. Now the right subphrenic space, it is bounded on the left by this falciform ligament and posteriorly by the superior layer of the coronary ligament. This space, it is a relatively common site for the infected fluid collection after a perforated appendicitis or the duodenal ulcer. On the right subhepatic space, which is also known as the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, it lies between the inferior surface of the right lobe of the liver and the upper pole of the right kidney. So it is bounded superiorly by the inferior layer of the coronary ligament, laterally by the right lateral abdominal wall, posteriorly by the anterior surface of the upper pole of the right kidney, and inframedially by the hepatic flexure of the colon, the associated part of the transverse mesocolon, the second part of the duodenum, and the part of the head of the pancreas. So this is the space, and it is clinically a very important space as it is the dependent most part when the patient is lying supine. So it is the site of fluid collection and also preferred site for the drain of that fluid. So putting a drain tube. On the lesser sac, it is the space lying behind the stomach and the lesser omentum, and here it is shown by cutting this gastrocolic ligament. So it is cut and the stomach it is reflected, and we can see the lesser sac. So it is connected to the greater sac by the epiploic foramen, which is shown here, and it is considered as a part of right supramesopolic compartment because it develops in the embryo on the right side of the ventral mesogastrium, and it has a posterior and anterior wall and superior, inferior, right and left borders. And before proceeding further, let's just recapitulate the development of lesser sac along with the development of the foregut. In the sectional view, the foregut has been shown being attached to the ventral body wall by the ventral mesogastrium, into which the liver is developing, and it is attached to the dorsal body wall in which the spleen is developing. Now, as the liver grows, and it grows enormously and so rapidly, it swings to the right, and at the same time the region of the foregut is swings to the left, causing the rotation of this part of the foregut, which is forming the stomach. Now, before rotating this region of the foregut, it has again it is shown as a tube into which this ventral border is having this ventral mesentery, and dorsal border it is having the dorsal mesentery attached to it, and these two surfaces, the left one it is supplied by the left vagus and the right one supplied by the right vagus. Now, with elongation and broadening of the gut tube occurs at the level of the foregut, and finally this dorsal border it's supersede in growth than that of the ventral border, and because of that, with further differential growth, this becomes convex. The dorsal border becomes convex and the ventral one lacking that growth, so it becomes concave. And between these two fixed point, esophageal and duodenal, the gut rotate in a 90-degree clockwise direction. So now this dorsal border it becomes this situated on the left side, and the ventral one it occupies the right side, and it is attached to the liver through this ventral mesogastrium, which is now known as this lesser omentum, and this one known as the greater curvature, which is having greater omentum. Now this left border is now facing ventrally, having this left vagus, and the right one is now facing dorsally, and it is lying between the stomach and posterior body wall. So the lesser sac is the region which is lying between this portion of the stomach and the lesser omentum attached to it. So that forms the lesser sac. And here it is also shown how after the rotation, this is the communication between the liver and the foregut or the stomach. So this forms the lesser omentum, and this space between the stomach and this lesser omentum, this forms the lesser sac. and its free border here, which is communicating it with the greater sac. This forms the epiploic foramen. Now in the region of this ventral dorsal mesogastrium, this in the region of the fundus, this spleen develops in the dorsal mesogastrium, and because of that, now the single peritoneal portion, it is now divided into two, forming the gastrosplenic and lienorenal ligament, and between these two ligaments there is a recess, and this recess is known as the splenic recess. And this rest of the portion, this peritoneal covering, this dorsal mesogastrium, it now lengthens and it forms the apron-like structure folded upon itself, which is known as the greater omentum. So the cavity within is the continuation of this again. So this cavity within, it forms the inferior recess, and the peritoneal covering of this portion, which is between the liver and the esophagus, is attached to the diaphragm, and this portion forms the superior recess. So there, this main portion, which is lying between the stomach, posterior surface of the stomach, and the lesser omentum, this is the vestibule, and there is a superior recess between the liver, esophagus, and the diaphragm. There is a splenic recess, and there is an inferior recess lying between the two layers of the greater omentum. Let's again understand this development using the sagittal sectional view. The developing foregut, it is attached to the ventral body wall through this biliate fold of peritoneum, which is the ventral mesogastrium, into which the liver is developing, and to the dorsal body wall through this dorsal mesogastrium, into which the spleen is developing. Now this space situated on the right side between the liver and the stomach, ventrally, and the stomach and the posterior body wall. This space lying towards the right, this is the original lesser sac. Now after rotation, this sac, this ventral part between the liver and the stomach, from the right and anterior situation, now it has shifted to a superior posterior direction. So it is lying posterior superior, and it is more towards the left. Only the part just behind the lesser omentum is towards the right, otherwise it is mostly towards the left. And the portion between behind the stomach and the posterior body wall, this is because of the lengthening of the greater omentum and folding upon itself. This portion, this sac, it is now lying in a this antero inferior direction, and it is more towards the right. What is shown here, the dorsal mesogastrium attached to the greater curvature of the stomach, it elongates and folded upon itself to form this double layer of the peritoneum, which is now known as greater omentum. And the cavity inside is the inferior recess of the lesser sac. So ideally the lesser sac should continue in between the two folds of the greater omentum, but just dorsal to it lies the transverse mesocolon, which enclose the transverse colon. And since after the fusion of this greater omentum with the transverse mesocolon, this cavity doesn't extend beyond the transverse colon. So the inferior recess, it is only up to the upper portion of the transverse colon in the adult life. Now in this lateral sectional view, let's identify the structure forming the anterior and the posterior walls of the lesser sac. Now this uppermost portion here, it is formed by the caudate lobe of the liver, then by the posterior layer of the lesser omentum, then by the peritoneum over the posterior wall of the stomach and the first part of the duodenum, and the lowermost portion is formed by the posterior lamina of the anterior sheet of greater omentum in the uppermost part before the fusion of the anterior and the posterior sheet. Now the posterior wall in the lowermost portion, it is formed by the anterior peritoneal lamina of the posterior sheet of the greater omentum overlying the transverse mesocolon, which is wrapping inferiorly and being attached to the posterior body wall superiorly. Now more superiorly, the peritoneum of the posterior wall, it covers the structure forming the bed of the stomach. So it is formed by the peritoneal covering, which covers the superior surface of the pancreas in the lower portion, a part of the head, then by mostly the neck and the body. So it covers this portion. Then the upper pole of the left kidney and the pole of the left suprarenal gland, and most clearly it covers this initiation of the abdominal aorta and its very first branch, which is the celiac trunk, and then in the uppermost part it covers this diaphragm, left part of the left hemidiaphragm. Now the borders of the lesser sac, the superior border, it is formed by the peritoneal reflection extending from the caudate lobe of liver to the right hemidiaphragm. Now that this right free border, hanging free, this is on the superior portion formed by the epiploic foramen, which is the conduit to the lesser sac. Now below this, it is formed by the reflection from the first part of the duodenum to the head of the pancreas, and inferiormost part is formed by the right border of the greater omentum before these two sheets fuse. On the left border, it is formed by this gastrophrenic ligament running from the fundus to the left hemidiaphragm, gastrosplenic ligament from the fundus to the spleen, and the left border of the greater omentum before the two sheets fuse, and the inferior border is formed by the juncture between the anterior and the posterior two lamina of the greater omentum. Now about the recess of the lesser sac. There are three: superior, inferior, and splenic. Superior recess shown here, lying cranially between the liver, abdominal part of the esophagus, and the right hemidiaphragm. So this portion forms the superior recess. The inferior recess, it lies between the folds, anterior and the posterior folds, and or the lamina of the greater omentum. So ideally it should lie up to the folds when they folded upon itself, but because of the adhesion and fusion with the transverse mesocolon, it is only up to the transverse mesocolon. Now the splenic recess lying between the ligaments of the spleen. This is the gastrosplenic ligament and this is the lienorenal ligament, and between these two this is the splenic recess lying on the left side. Now the region of the fluid in the lesser sac includes acute pancreatitis, which is the most common as it is related intimately to the superior border of the pancreas, which includes the head part of the head and neck and the body, most of the part of the body of the pancreas. So acute pancreatitis causes the fluid in the lesser sac. Then another is the ruptured splenic artery, which is lying along this superior border of the pancreas. So because of that, again it is related intimately to the lesser sac. And third is the perforation of the posterior gastric ulcer. Again, as we have already discussed, the part of the omentum covering the posterior wall of the stomach is forming the wall of the anterior wall of the lesser sac. So a perforation will perforate through this omentum and will finally perforate into the lesser sac. So the epiploic foramen, which is the conduit to the lesser sac, connecting the lesser sac to the greater sac, its anterior boundary, it is formed by this thickened free right border of the lesser omentum, which is known as hepatoduodenal ligament, and is lying between the porta hepatis and the first part of the duodenum. Now posteriorly it is bounded by the peritoneum covering the inferior vena cava. Now in its free peritoneal border one could palpate the bile duct, which is lying anteriorly and to the right, the hepatic artery, which is lying anteriorly and to the left, and portal vein, which is lying posterior to both. Now the superior boundary, it is formed by the chordate process of the liver, and inferior boundary is by the first part of the duodenum. Now the subdivisions of the left supramesocolic space. The left subphrenic space lying below the left hemidiaphragm, it is bounded medially by the falciform ligament, posteriorly by the anterior layer of the left triangular ligament, and inframedially by the this line splenorenal or lienorenal ligament, gastrosplenic ligament, and phrenicocholic ligament, which separate this space from the left paracolic gutter. Now the inframesocolic compartment lies below the transverse colon and its peritoneal fold, transverse mesocolon, and it is divided into two unequal spaces by the root of the mesentery, which is the mesentery of the small intestine, and it divides it obliquely. So because of that, this left infracolic space, it is larger and it is also in free communication with the pelvis below. It also includes this right paracolic gutter, which is lying lateral to the ascending colon, and the left paracolic gutter, which is lying lateral to the descending colon. Now the space with relation to the ascending colon, which is the right paracolic gutter, it is deeper. Now subphrenic space, which is more common on the right, secondary to a perforated appendicitis or the duodenal ulcer, the reason being the clockwise flow of the peritoneal fluid from the lower abdomen and pelvis, as it was discussed earlier. Also, the right paracolic gutter, it is deeper than that of the left. And third, the phrenicocholic ligament partially obstruct the flow of the fluid from the left paracholic gutter towards the subphrenic area. Now, as we know, these two vascular pedicles supplying the liver, which is the hepatic artery and portal vein, both lie near this free border of the lesser omentum. So, when a manual compression or a clamp is placed, these vascular pedicle to the liver can be compressed, and the vascularity of the liver can be temporarily stopped. So that is the basis of Pringle maneuver, by compressing these vascular pedicle near this free border of the lesser omentum. As we know, between the parietal and the visceral peritoneum into the peritoneal cavity, there is only a thin amount of fluid, and when this fluid exceeds more than 25 ml, it is known as ascites, or the collection of the peritoneal fluid. Mild ascites is generally unnoticeable, but severe case of ascites may include abdominal distension, breathlessness, and the causes range from the cirrhosis, tuberculosis, bacterial infection, even heart failure. And the treatment includes drainage of this fluid first of all, and then the treatment of the causative factor. Inflammation of the peritoneal fold is known as peritonitis, and the symptoms it range from the abdominal pain and tenderness, abdominal distension, fever, weight loss, and the causes it range from the intestinal perforation, gastric ulcer perforation, perforated appendicitis, pelvic inflammatory diseases. So there are multiple acute pancreatitis. There are multiple causative factors that may cause the inflammation of the depleted part of the peritoneal reflection. Posterior to the disruption of the peritoneal fold through a stab wound, the cut surfaces they are initially healed by the fibrin, and after healing these fibrin portion they are replaced by the scar tissue, which are adhesive. So they may cause abnormal attachment between the coils of the visceral organs, the portion of the visceral organ, or the communication between the visceral organ and the body wall. So these adhesion are known as peritoneal adhesion, and they are troublesome, especially the coil of intestine, which twist around these adhesion and become obstructed, causing a volvulus. So that is an emergency condition. Now the mesothelial lining of the peritoneum, it acts as a semi-permeable membrane, and using this transmembrane capability of these, the dialysate or the dialysing fluid can be introduced into the peritoneal cavity, and afterwards this fluid can be drained, and this is the basis of peritoneal dialysis. So it uses the transmembrane capability or semi-permeable capability of the mesothelial lining of the peritoneum.